All I eat is meat and eggs. No sugar, no fruits, and no veggies. I've been doing that for over a year and have never felt better. But what about my cholesterol? I recently had some labs done, and today I'm going to let you in on every little detail. Hi, I'm Jen. If you're new here, I'm delighted to meet you. I've personally experienced radical healing on a carnivore diet, and I can help you to achieve abundant health through diet as well. Today, I'm joined by Jen Winkler. She's a national board-certified health and wellness coach and a functional chemistry specialist. Join us as we discuss the ins and outs of my personal blood work. I'll let you in on a little secret ahead of time. It's not all perfect. Stick around for the very end, and I'll share a free tool that you can use to analyze some of your own blood work. I've got Jen Winkler here with me today, also known as Coach Jen Winkler on Instagram. So Jen, I'd love for you to introduce yourself a little more, tell everyone about you, and then we'll dig right into my labs.
Sure, Jen. Thanks so much for having me. So my name's Jen. I am a national board certified health and wellness coach. I graduated from Primal Health Institute and then continued to further my education to become a functional blood chemistry specialist. And I'm currently training to become a hormone coach as well. So I love to help women who have insulin resistance, prediabetes, hormone imbalance, and just help them to better their lives, better their health through ketogenic, low carb, or carnivore lifestyle. And I loved adding the blood labs aspect to my practice to be able to help them feel comfortable with their cholesterols being a little bit different than the mainstream narrative or anything like that. So it's really been helpful to teach them those pathways and how those things work. So it's a little bit about my credentials.
Thank you. As a carnivore, a lot of people say, oh, your cholesterol is going to be terrible, or your kidneys are going to be shot, things like that. And I'm pretty sure that's not true. And certainly I feel better than ever. And I have overcome a lot of chronic health issues. So I can't imagine that what is on the inside is just terrible when what is on the outside is so much better. So that's what you're here for. I'd love for you to help me determine what is going on with these labs and what it means.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's dive in.
Let's start with the cholesterol.
We did what's called an NMR lipoprofile, lipids plus IR. That is like the gold Cadillac of figuring out how your cholesterol is functioning in your body, what the levels are, and all that kind of stuff. So explaining what that means, if you just go to your doctor and say, get my cholesterol checked, they're only going to check total, LDL-C, HDL, triglycerides, maybe one other thing, but that's typically all they check. In an NMR, it's like taking a microscope and putting it onto your cholesterol markers and breaking it apart and looking at all the mechanisms of it. So we have your total cholesterol, we have your triglycerides, we have your LDL-C, but we also have a marker called LDL-P. LDL-P is the particles of the LDL. LDL-C is like the total. So one of the analogies people say, if you picture a highway, LDL-P and HDL-P are like the vehicles on the highway, right? If you're going around noon, it's not going to be very trafficy. If you go during rush hour, it's going to be back to back to back, okay? LDL-C are like the passengers in the car. When you are looking at a traffic report, which matters more? The cars or the passengers? Right? So like usually it's you want to know how many cars are on the highway, how long is it going to take you to get there? So LDL-C, if you are measuring the passengers in the car, it's not going to tell you much about the blockage in the highway. And I hope you guys are connecting what I mean by the blockage as in your arteries as well. So LDL-P is a better measurement of the possibility of cardiovascular disease, of blockage in the arteries. The LDL-C are the passengers on the lipoprofile, on the lipoproteins. So knowing that, her Jen's LDL-P was 1,089, and which is completely normal. So even LabCorp reference range says to be under 1,000, and to be 1,089 is like, it's a perfect range. So that part, and then even her LDL-C If we look at the LabCorp range, which is not what we look at, I look at it from a functional standpoint. The LabCorp range says 0 to 99, which makes absolutely no sense to me. You don't want an LDL of 0, like that's not good. But hers was only 121. So perfect range. It's not too much, it's not too little, it's at a really good range. And HDLC was, HDLC was 88. Perfect. We want that number to be high. I help people remember that. HDL, you want high, H high. Triglycerides were 49. Low. That's the one you want to be under 100. So HDL ideally is over 50. Triglycerides ideally are under 100. The better the ratio, that's the other thing you want to look at, is the ratio of HDL to triglyceride. So a 1-to-1 ratio is perfect. Yours, HDL is higher, so it's less than a 1-to-1 ratio, which is even better. You don't want your triglycerides to be way high and your HDL to be way low. Total cholesterol was 218. Again, really good. Even LabCorp range wants it 199 or under, and you're just barely over that. So that's really good. Cholesterol is good for us. But there was also too much of a good thing is not good either. So just pointing that out there. This is the awesome part of the NMR. It looks at the LDL, like I said, microscopically at the size of your LDL. So there are 2 patterns you can have. One is called pattern A and one is called pattern B. You want to be pattern A. Pattern A are big, fluffy LDL particles. Those are the kinds that are really good for you and healthy, and they do not block your arteries. This is all scientific research. This is not my belief, my opinion. There are plenty of studies that show this. Pattern B is when you have a high amount of small, dense LDL. Jen's is undetectable. As far as small, dense LDL, it is under 90. That is the smallest amount you can get recorded on this lab. So that is extremely positive news. She has undetectable amounts of LDL that can clog her artery. So even if her LDL-C is 121 above LabCorp range, they're all big and fluffy, which is all beneficial. Oh, and then the last part was your insulin resistance score. So they do this calculation thing with all the numbers, and they like you to be under 45. Functionally, we like you to be 25 or under, and that's exactly where you are, is under 25.
So cholesterol in general, would you say I have any reason to believe that being on a carnivore diet is negatively affecting my cholesterol?
I would say no. With your numbers, no. Everybody is their own experiment, their own N=1 experiment. So for Jen's situation, I don't see any reason being carnivore would, especially looking at previous labs that she's had, would cause any harm on your cholesterol. If it was someone else where, let's say, their small dense LDLP was elevated, like yours was undetectable at 90, if someone had a small dense LDL of above 500, even 600, like it's okay, it's borderline okay, then I would say you may want to get what's called a CAC scan. And it just basically scans your arteries and it gives you a score. You want a score of 0. So if your small dense is elevated, but you have a CAC score of 0, you're going to be okay. And most of the time, 99% of the time, it is okay. The other thing someone can get checked is called the ApoB or the ApoB lab marker. We didn't get that one done for you, but if you want to in the future, we always can. And ApoB is basically every LDL particle has an ApoB on it. And so it is a much better marker of cardiovascular disease than looking at only a basic lipid panel. So we have all these tools now that we can look at to really look at the risk.
So to those of you saying my cholesterol is terrible, suck on that. It's really good.
All right, I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to show you a couple graphs that I have that speak about LDL. So here's a graph that I would love for you to see and observe to show how LDLP is a better marker than LDLC. So if we look here, it says the probability of event-free survival. These are the years of follow-up. So these are all different line graph kind of things that show not the correlation, but basically the markers of these people that they followed the study. You can look at the study name down here. This red one shows these people had low LDLP as well as low LDLC. And the probability of event-free survival was pretty good because they were both low, right? So they stayed up here even after about 16 years follow-up. We look at the other group that had low LDLC, but they had high LDLP. Everybody started at 1, obviously. They went down so much more drastically than this red group up here, who had also low LDLP. So you can see the massive difference between those two groups. And that goes to show that while LDLC can be helpful to look at, it's not the end all be all. LDLP, along with LDLC, is a much better viewpoint as to what is happening with your cholesterol. And then we have the other two groups in the middle with low LDLP and high LDLC. They were still really close to this group that had low LDLP. That had low LDLC. And the same with this one, high LDLC and high LDLP. So it just goes to show, look at those numbers together versus alone. Here's another study that was done. And if you look at the graph, the mean LDLC was 104.1. So we're right about here somewhere, plus or minus 39.8. Half of the patients hospitalized with cardiovascular disease had an admission LDLC of less than 100. Here's the halfway point. All of these had less than 100, and they were all admitted for cardiovascular disease. LDLC less than 70 was observed in 17.6% of the patients. Less than 1/4 of the patients had an admission LDLC of greater than 130. So among all those patients without prior history of this disease or any other heart disease, diabetes, 41.5% had LDLC of less than 100. And 12.5% had LDLC of less than 70. So basically what this is pointing out is LDLC is not a good marker of predicting cardiovascular. It's as we got higher, there was less. As we were getting lower, so basically this is the high point of it, right around 100, where doctors usually like to see it. So that's just another little tool in your toolbox.
As you've pointed out, my cholesterol is fantastic. No need to worry about that with these numbers. What about my kidneys?
Your kidneys are working perfectly fine. There's absolutely no problems.
Cool. They feel good in there. Okay, so what should we talk about next?
Well, I know another hot topic on carnivore is thyroid. A lot of people say you need carbs to have good hormones and good thyroid hormones. Personally, my own opinion is I think carbs can be used as a tool, but it is not necessary to have healthy thyroid. So we looked at your thyroid hormones. We did a full panel. The only marker I did not order was the reverse T3, which a little part of me kind of regrets, but it's okay. Your TSH was in range at 2.32, perfectly in the middle. Your T4, free T4, was 1.15, and your T3 was slightly low at 2.1. The caveat there is Jen sent me her labs from 3 years ago, as well as couple years before that, and they were all consistent. So the fact that it's slightly low is not due to carnivore. It's just something, it can be her normal, or they may be something else. And that's part of why I wish I checked reverse T3, because that would give us way more information. If you don't know much about the thyroid pathway, TSH is not a thyroid hormone per se. It is thyroid stimulating hormone. Your HPA, your pituitary gland is signaling to your thyroid, make hormone. That is the TSH. Once your thyroid makes hormone, it makes mostly T4 and a little bit of T3. The T4 then needs to be converted into free T3. That is the active. There are many different situations and many causes where that conversion process becomes interrupted. It can be nutritional deficiencies, which that's not Jen's case. It can be stress. It can be liver dysfunction. That's a very common one. And low calories, too much, any kind of stress. So all those things could cause T4 to be converted into reverse T3 instead, which is inactive, useless storage kind of thing. So if Jen was really curious, if she was very symptomatic, such as losing hair, losing the outer part of her eyebrow, low energy, weight gain, any of those kind of things, or plateauing even, then I would say, hey, Jen, let's do a panel with your reverse T3 and let's just see where it's at. But I don't think you're feeling any of that, right, Jen?
I'm not, but I'm curious. So next time we'll do the reverse T3 just to see.
Just to see. Yeah, it doesn't hurt.
Now, how about my glucose and insulin? How did those look?
Yeah. So one of the things I hear people say, which I don't know what scientific basis they put this on, but they say eating carnivore can make you diabetic or eating keto can make you insulin resistant. And it makes absolutely no sense to me, considering the fact it is carbs that make your glucose go up, not the other way around. So yes, your insulin was perfect at 3.3. Insulin, we want to be under 6 is the optimal. We always take this into consideration as to where you were before. So for example, I've had a client where her insulin was 20 when she started working with me. And then once she felt self-efficacious to continue on her own, insulin was still at a 12. That's okay. It's going in the right direction. And that's all I care about. And then we'll check again, like in 3 to 6 months and make sure it's continuing to decline. If it doesn't, there could be something else going on there. Glucose was 85. Again, perfect. We want your glucose to be somewhere between 70 and upper 80s. If it's below 70 in the 60s, that can be okay for certain cases, such as competitive athletes, things like that, people that work strenuously. 60s can be normal too, but most of the people is between 70 and 89.
Oh, and also my A1c was perfectly good, right?
Your A1c was 5.2, so perfect. You want that to be 5.6 or under. Once it hits 5.7, then you're getting into the pre-diabetic range. But yeah, it's looking good.
Great. Now that's the one thing I have not had any pushback on. People never really say, oh, your glucose and your insulin are going to be bad. But I understand you have heard that, so that's strange.
Yes.
So everything we've discussed so far has been fantastic, and I'm very pleased and not surprised a bit, but there were a couple things that were a little bit off. So let's talk about those.
Yeah, sure. So one of the things, and especially lately, it's been harped upon in the carnivore space is carnivore does not fix everything, right? It's not a magic pill. It's going to fix a lot, but sometimes there's some underlying issues that need a little bit of boosting and a little bit of support. So that's your case, Jen. I believe possibly, obviously I'm not a doctor, I can't diagnose, but possibly due to the medication that you were on, it kind of taxed your liver and your liver needs some loving. So your AST and ALT are still slightly elevated for functional ranges. For the LabCorp range, if you went to a normal doctor, they would not blink an eye at it and they'd say, oh, it's fine. Your ALT was 32, your AST was 23. However, again, in context, Jen sent me her labs from before the medication that she started, before for her psoriasis, and then like the years continuing on. Prior to the medication, her liver enzymes were on point, perfect. And then as she went on the medication, as she continued it, it slowly increased. And it was at one point, her AST was 45, which is horrible. Like it's even outside of the standard range. And her ALT was 22. So her AST went from 45 to 23. So that's really good. And her ALT went from 22 to 32, which I would just keep an eye on. ALT is a better marker of liver than the AST is. So that's why I say you may just need some liver support, some liver loving, maybe a detox of some sort. And then there's other markers that kind of hint at it as well. And let me see, the homocysteine is one of them. It was slightly elevated functionally. it's within standard range, but functionally just a little high, at 9.4. And I believe it's supposed to be under 8 or 7. It's somewhere in that area. So it's just slightly. Again, if we had the marker before, which you didn't get, we'd have more of a context to see, is it going down? Because how long have you been carnivore?
I've been carnivore a little over a year.
See, and that's the thing, like it's only been a year. So it could have been coming down and it could be getting better. We just don't know. So that would be one of those, like in 5 months, we would go and check it again and see if it's getting better. But in the meantime, for those markers, if you were my client, I would suggest taking either an ounce of liver every other day, because homocysteine can also be elevated due to low B9 or low folate. And then there's other B vitamins that homocysteine can indicate that your body's not methylating. So homocysteine is a better indicator of methylation than it is of inflammation. So that would be, and it doesn't hurt, honestly, to take, just don't overdo it. Obviously, too much vitamin A is not a good thing. But an ounce every other day would be fine. Or if you can't tolerate the liver, you can do liver capsules. Eggs also have those B vitamins that you need. So maybe upping the eggs a little bit. Or you can just find some kind of really quality B supplement that has both B9 and B12, because they work synergistically when doing the methylation. Let me see. And there were some other things I saw too that indicated possible methylation. But either way, the homocysteine is the best indicator of it. And then the other aspect was your GGT level. So GGT is involved in the movement of glutathione from extracellular to intracellular. So this is getting really into the depths of what's going on where we can't see it, right? Like that deep cellular healing. So your GGT was really low. It was in lab ranges, but not functional lab ranges. It was at a 6. So what I would tell a client with this, usually you can get some glutathione from certain vegetables. Sulfury food is where glutathione is found. So your broccoli, your cruciferous vegetables. Eggs do have some because they're a little sulfury, but not as much as the vegetables. The hard part with that is, even if you did do the vegetables, a lot of it is destroyed in the digestive system. So those of you saying, Jen, just eat the vegetables, it wouldn't make a giant difference. I usually tell people in this case to start taking the supplement called NAC, N-acetylcysteine. It is a fantastic supplement to take to help cellular healing. And it also can boost that glutathione in your system. And it also gives love to the liver. It helps to kind of cleanse away the junk that your liver has been storing. So mainly the NAC, and then possibly taking a little B supplement somewhere. And it wouldn't be a long-term thing. It would just be short-term until the next blood work, see how things are going. And then once all that junk is cleared out, your body should start working properly. I wouldn't think you have any MTHFR situation because your homocysteine's not high enough. So that's why I think it's just a temporary thing.
Okay, and so with the B vitamins, if I'm just doing the ounce of liver every day, will that suffice instead of supplementing? Because I would rather do whole foods if I can.
Yeah, absolutely. That's much better than taking supplements, is doing the whole food, because then you're getting other vitamins too that your body can utilize also. The NAC is not one that I know of that's in liver. It may be. I did not research it, so I can't say one way or another. I just know the supplementation of NAC is very, very helpful. It's more potent than you would get in any kind of food.
So one thing I want to point out is I was on biologic injectable medications for my psoriasis for 3 years, and doctors know that they're terrible for your liver. So you have to get liver function tests every year. And so that's why I have all these labs going back. And like Jen said, they were perfect when I started the medicine, and then they just kept getting worse and worse and worse throughout the 3 years.
And then they got that. You said 45 was terrible. Nobody ever said anything to me about it, not once. Now I saw on the labs the time that that it was 45. Was it the AST that was 45? I saw that, but nobody said anything. So I was like, I guess I'm fine. And so I'm a little frustrated to find out that I was really doing some pretty serious damage to my liver. And I'm so happy to know now so I can try to fix it. And I will gag down some liver and I will take supplements if that's going to help. But like you said, you know, it's just temporary. And I'm really excited to do this again in the future and see how it's changing. And hopefully,
Yeah.
not have to eat liver every other day anymore, and certainly not have to take supplements if I don't have to.
No, exactly. And Jen, I can 100% relate to you, because the people that don't know my story, I've had epilepsy since I was 12, and I was on heavy doses of medication, of anti-epileptic medication. And my liver enzymes were both in the 40s, and no one said anything either. And it's the same thing with your medication. I had to get mine checked every year as well. So I have records going back many years. And when I saw those, I remember my doctor saying, that's just because your medication. But nothing was done. And now I am in the same boat as you, where I am taking NAC to help support my liver and help clear all the junk out, as well as some other situations. But yeah, it is very frustrating that, and I try not to blame doctors, because some of them just don't know. You know, they're the way the insurance company works now, doctors are so overwhelmed that they just don't have time to research anymore. So the doctors, what I feel like they should do is team up and find health coaches or functional practitioners or anything like that that can take on that part of their job, in a sense where, okay, these people have more time to sit down with the patient and can dive in nutrition and all that stuff. And then the doctor can do doctor stuff, you know, and that would be my solution.
Now I noticed that my vitamin D and my magnesium were a little on the low end too. And my old labs indicate that that's been the case for a long time. In fact, my vitamin D has come up, but it's still a little low. So what should I do about that?
Yeah, so there can be a number of different reasons the vitamin D is low. One of them is low magnesium. So they work hand in hand. If your magnesium intake is low, then it's going to affect your vitamin D. The other thing that can affect your vitamin D is the liver dysfunction, because so the way that I'm trying to do this in a visual way, the way vitamin D works, you're out in the sun, you're absorbing it, right? It's hitting your skin, but then it goes through the pathway through your liver to be converted into a different form of vitamin D. And magnesium works alongside it in order to convert it to that other kind of vitamin D, which is more utilized. So the one we measured is not the one your body utilizes. It still has to go through another process. To measure the one your body utilizes is much more expensive. That's why doctors usually just resort to this one. Because this one's already a little bit on the pricier side. So if you go to the other one, it's like, whoa, you'd have to have some massive evidence that we really need to check this to go to that next level. So the things I would think that would help, I believe you go for walks every day and you're in the sun, right?
Yes, but I'm in Kansas. It's not that warm yet. So I'm usually walking every day in a sweatshirt and pants, getting a little sun on my face, and that's about it. But it's almost time that I can lay out, at least do t-shirt and shorts. So it's coming up.
Yeah. What I usually tell people, and I know there's conflicting opinions on this in this space, but the best thing's obviously the sun. But if it's cold, you're not going to sit out in the snow in your bathing suit soaking up the sun. So a little bit of supplementation during the winter months for those in the northern states or the northern hemisphere, Canada, you know, all those kind of areas, I would say is not going to hurt. You just don't want to overdo it. So I usually say, depending on the person, between 2,000 and 4,000 IUs a day. Make sure it's a quality supplement and it's not filled with soybean oil or any of those other junks. But it doesn't hurt to do that. Some people do benefit from red light therapy somehow, and different kind of light therapies. Just having 10 minutes of that in front of your face can help the vitamin D absorption. And then again, loving on the liver, and like really doing some different cleanses. That's too much detail to get into now. on how to do that. But different cleanses, magnesium, you want to make sure it's a quality magnesium also. Magnesium glycinate would be the perfect one for this. I tell clients, depending on what their magnesium levels would be, somewhere between 200 and 400 milligrams a night is good. If you are a cycling woman, if you're still getting your period every month, when your period is approaching, you want to up it another 100 to 200 milligrams, because when all that's coming out, you're also losing magnesium. That is one of the reasons, this is a little bonus, why women get chocolate cravings often near their period, is you're really asking for magnesium. So for many people, not everybody, but for many, supplementing extra magnesium or even taking more electrolytes can help curb those cravings.
Now, with my magnesium level, would you say 200 or 400? Do you have an opinion on that for me?
Yeah, with yours, I would say it would about 300 would be perfect for now. And then I'm always big on like retesting in the future to make sure it's working, because then if it's not, there's something deeper going on. And then if it's working, then we lower it, because then your body starts adapting to it and all that stuff. But unfortunately, in today's world, there's just not enough magnesium in our foods. So I have every single client of mine taking magnesium, especially if there's symptoms. If they're not sleeping well, we have them take it before they go to bed. If they're getting a lot of cramping with their periods, if there's a lot of brain fog, cognition, if there's no symptoms, then I'm like, maybe you're fine with it. It's okay, but most people need a little supplement there.
Is there anything else in my labs that's worth mentioning, or does that pretty much cover it?
I think that's pretty much it. I think pretty much everything else was on point. The one thing we didn't talk about was your CRP, your C-reactive protein, and that's your inflammation marker. So considering that you had an autoimmune disease all that time, your inflammation marker would have been really high. CRP, we like to see between 0 and 1. And yours was under 1. Yours was 0.83. Anyone with a CRP of 1 to 10 has low-grade inflammation of some sort. I've never seen over 10, so I don't know, but it's usually between 1 and 10. There's some kind of low-grade inflammation. So yours was perfect. Goes to show that carnivore has helped your autoimmune and has brought down the inflammation in your body.
That's awesome. And now I've been off my medications for about 8 months. So I hope to see my liver function getting even better over the next 6 months or a year. Speaking of, would you recommend that I do these labs again in about 6 months? That's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a perfect timing. Since most of your labs were good, even some of these we wouldn't have to necessarily go over. Your cholesterol, we could easily just do a basic panel, considering the fact it's been normal this whole time. And yeah, we would go over those. One thing I did forget for the liver, a really good one is castor oil packs. So I have an affiliate link with the Queen of Thrones. They're legit, and they have this flannel pack, and you just pour about a tablespoon of castor oil on it and wrap it around your liver, and you sleep overnight, because between the hours of 1 to 3 in the morning is when your liver tends to detox. So if you're waking up at those times often, then that can be a sign that your liver might need a little extra lemon. So sleeping overnight with it, it does help pull toxins out. There's a whole bunch of good stuff I've been learning about castor oil in general, not necessarily consuming it, but not like those old movies, but just putting the wrap on it, and even having a separate one for if women have issues with cramping during their period, putting one on their pelvic area is really helpful too during that time, and it helps to pull the impurities out. So that's another, if you wanted a more natural support for the liver.
Jen, I appreciate you so much going over my labs with me and explaining them to me and explaining them to all my viewers. This is so very helpful. I cannot wait to do it again and see how things are improving. If anybody watching would like to work with you as well, how can they find you?
Yeah, sure. So I am most active on Instagram, and my handle is Coach Jen Winkler. I try to keep it simple. Jen with one N. And my website is www.jenwinkler.me.com was taken. So you can either message me, you can set up a free discovery call through my link, and we can just make sure you hint on there that you would prefer to look, like you want me to look at your labs. The way I do that though, I don't just take the labs that your doctor ordered. We have to have an initial call, about 30-ish minutes, talking about what your problems are, why do you want labs checked, and then we dive into like the different pillars of sleep, stress, nutrition, all that stuff. So then if there's something I might be concerned about, I might add a few more tests on. I do let you try to order through your doctor if preferred, if it's cheaper with insurance, because I can't take insurance, but I can take HSA and FSA. But the self-pay is usually cheaper, to be honest, because I have some pretty good bulk discounts. And then we do a follow-up, which is like this, where I go over what my findings are and what my recommendations are. But this is just a tiny part of what I do. And the bigger part is more health coaching. So let's say we did find you have insulin resistance. Well, okay, what are we going to do about it? Is it going to be carnivore, keto, low carb, paleo? What would be the best avenue for you? I don't fit everything into one box. I do love them all. Everybody's like, we're all different. So different things work for different people. But yeah, so I do health coaching as well. But yeah, those are the best ways to reach me.
So if you liked this, I'd love it if you'd share it, like, and subscribe, and then follow both me and Jen Winkler on Instagram. We're both more active there most days of the week.
So there you have it. My cholesterol is great, my kidneys are great, my thyroid is fine, and the carnivore diet does not appear to be harming me in any way. However, there is some work to be done to repair the liver damage caused by the high dose medications that I was previously on for 3 years due to my psoriasis. I'll be working on that and I will report back in about 6 months. As promised at the beginning of the video, I have a free tool for you to analyze your own labs. Visit www.delightedtomeetyou.com/cholesterol to use it, and that's MEAT. I hope you found this helpful. If so, please like, share, and subscribe. And feel free to check me out on Instagram where we can chat every day. While you're there, you can also give @Coach Jen Winkler a follow as well.